I remember reading this, that our bodies actually, due over the last few 100,000 years, we have developed a defense against 300,000 known viruses and bacteria on Earth.
Wow.
Now, that's a whole lot.
You don't know how long it's going to last for. You don't know how much spike protein it's going to make. You don't know how long it's going to make spike protein. So you're sitting with all these variables there.
Trace elements are plasmids, and this plasmids is the way how we make hyaluronic acid, how we make mRNA technology, or how we're going to make maybe even future cancer therapies. Yes. This is going to be the method. It's not wrong about the technology. The platform is fantastic.
You see, you've got to assume as well that, you remember, there are a lot of people in the world that are illiterate. And we're trying to assist them. So there's an assumption when you take informed consent that it's your duty to take into consideration the level of education of the patient and inform them appropriately. Whether you have to stand on your head and use sign language, that's what you're going to have to do, because they must be completely informed.
When a German scientist was saying like, look, women, now be careful, because when something like this gets into your ovaries, it's not mitosis, it's meiosis. It's going to be huge problems.
Because I was told as a young boy, always keep your barber and your doctor close to you. The doctor, of course, he'll save your life. And your barber will never tell your secrets to anybody else. Anyway, I and Roland don't have hair, so we don't have barbers.
Selamat sejahtera everyone. Welcome to the Lesung Batu Medic Show. Bersama saya Dr. Roland hari ini daripada Lesung Batu. Dan hari ini saya bawakan dua doktor yang memang terkenal. Satu terkenal di Malaysia dan juga satu lagi memang famous daripada seluruh dunia. Beliau berasal daripada negara Afrika Selatan, South Africa, dan dia hadir ke Kuala Lumpur untuk salah satu majlis perubatan ataupun simposium perubatan, dan saya berkesempatan dan terhutang budi kerana beliau hadir untuk mencermah podcast kami kali ini. So bersama saya hari ini ialah Dr. Satvinder. Selamat datang Dr. Satvinder.
Thank you.
And Dr. Shankara Chetty. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dr. Shankara Chetty berasal daripada South Africa dan Dr. Satvinder berasal daripada Kuala Lumpur.
Dari Negeri Sembilan.
Oh, dari Negeri Sembilan. Tapi bekerja berkhidmat di Kuala Lumpur. Okay. So saya akan menghujah tentang satu topik yang mungkin panas, tentang disease X dan juga future pandemic. Ini akan menjadi salah satu perbualan hari ini, dan izinkan saya melanjutkan perbicaraan ini dalam bahasa Inggeris disebabkan ada tetamu kami yang mungkin belum tak fasih dalam bahasa Melayu tapi sangat fasih dalam bahasa Inggeris. Dr. Shankara, we will begin the podcast in English. It's great to have you here in this event, and thanks for coming to Malaysia. It's been quite a long time for stay here in KL. How many days have you been here so far?
I landed on the 12th of September and I'm leaving on the 30th.
Okay, great to have you. So, let's not waste any much time and let's get to the show. So first, I think the past few days we've been seeing almost all medias covering on this topic of the future pandemic, which is they're naming it as disease X, just putting X as a sort of like a marking for what's next to come. And we have information said by regulators and also scientists saying that the possibility of this new disease could actually achieve like 50 million deaths, even more, or equate the Spanish flu in the early 1900s. The question we see at the moment is, are we going to a situation where something that's not even supposed to happen, we are trying to over-predict with the possibility of variety of viruses that actually exist in the planet? Why are we doing this at this moment?
I think there's an agenda. I think if you can predict when a virus is going to emerge with that amount of certainty, then you are actually in charge of releasing that virus. These things are unpredictable. Nature doesn't have that way. So when I suck my thumb, it's unusual for me to get such a distinct flavor. And so I think it's pre-planned. So I think there's an agenda at play. And when they talk of disease X, I mean, we've got pathogens that have a variety of different pathogenicities. How do you know that you're going to have a virus that will emerge on a very specific date and cause that amount of death? That is completely unpredictable, unless, of course, you have pre-planned it. And it's the pre-planning that gives you the knowledge of what's going to transpire.
True. Does that?
I tend to agree wholeheartedly with what Shankara said just now. We have to remember that we have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, if not a million. The usual narrative is that we have all, slowly evolved from single-cell organisms, and then we became walking apes, and then there was an evolutionary jump, and we became humans. We must not forget that we lived through such a long time, and populations never actually shrunk. Population has actually grown. So that itself tells you there's an innate ability in people to ward off infections, whether it's bacterial or viral. All right. If you get sick, even if you don't take any action, eventually you will get better because your body system is designed to defend itself against all kinds of pathogens, right, or organisms. I remember reading this, that our bodies actually, due over the last few 100,000 years, we have developed a defense against 300,000 known viruses and bacteria on Earth.
Wow.
Now, that's a whole lot. And your memory of those viruses that didn't kill you, allowed the human being to survive and carry on, has been passed on from generation to generation. That's what we talk about genetics. That's why we talk about DNA, RNA. So we can't push this aside and say that, our body doesn't have an immune system. I'll give you a simple example. My grandparents used to fly to India for their holy pilgrimage. We didn't have a flu vaccine at that time. So I'm talking the 60s and the 70s. My parents used to fly, whether it's here or to Hong Kong or to Japan or India. They never took flu vaccines, okay? And they go and they come back just as they were, all right? So my question is, if you say that you have to, there's a virus coming, I suspect it's not nature, right? I suspect there's someone who's behind that evolution of that virus, because otherwise how would it just pop out? How can you actually predict a virus attack, right? We don't. We get a cough and flu once in 2 or 3 years. Your body upgrades its immune system. You learn how to fight that off. The virus goes off. Then 2-3 years later, you get another flu. And this time the virus has adapted or mutated. So you fall sick again, maybe slightly differently from the first time.
Yes.
First time you had a flu, now I have a sore throat, but I get better.
And I think you're right. I always like to share this analogy with my patients. It's like, it's a National Day parade. There is no need for the military to actually bring out all the equipments. One, it's cost. One is you got to route this through public, and something can go wrong also. But every single nation would pull out all their tools and equipments to navigate through the cities. Why? It's sought to show that in any siege or attack, this is how fast we can actually deploy, and this is how fast we can actually take them out. So in the sense of our immune system, when we actually go into perpetually look, let's get another shot, let's get this, let's get that. I mean, you do not allow this form of training.
Yeah.
You do not allow this form of training. So you always hope that, there's this iron dome available. It's always going to protect you. No. You always understand that the immune system also needs some form of retraining.
Yeah.
It needs to be retrained to reprogram into new combats, new situation, a new kind of adaptation of viruses, bacteria and everything. We always think that only viruses evolve. We always forget to think that even bacteria evolved, but nobody talks about it. And coming back to this situation where the mass media actually is becoming the biggest virus at the moment. So the way in the past few days we can see in such a perfectly coordinated information dispersion, every media, whether it's in all languages, everyone ran disease X so well. But when it came to issues like whether it was issues of governance, whether of issues of trials going on in certain countries where certain files are being exposed, everything else doesn't go. Why do you think so? Do you think that actually is the media running the farmer or the farmer running the media?
I think it's the farmer running the media. They have financial incentive to push vaccines. And so they formulate the narrative. I mean, we had Event 201 before COVID. And everything that they planned and predicted came true. And they managed it in exactly that way. So it's all pre-planned. Everything's pre-planned. The media has to push that particular narrative. Now, it's easy to lock someone up in their home and then put a TV in front of them and indoctrinate them with exactly what your idea of the truth is. You put a mask on everyone, it's like an X. In those days when we had pandemics, put an X on people's doors to say you don't go there and you're not allowed to leave your house. The mask was the same thing. So yeah, they've learned over time how to manipulate the psychology of people. They've perfected that art. And so they just used fear to make sure that we make irrational choices. And they've used everything, the media, they've used the judicial system, they've used everything to coerce us into doing this. But it's completely irrational. Completely irrational. I mean, with the last vaccine, it started off as safe and effective. It started off as it'll stop infection and transmission. Then that didn't pan out. And then it became prevention of severe illness and death. But my treatment of COVID prevents severe illness and death. And my treatment's not a vaccine. And my treatment's limited to only sick people. So when you say it prevents severe illness and death, then you're talking about a therapeutic. You're not talking about a vaccine. So they manipulated English, changed the definition of a vaccine, changed the definition of a pandemic to suit your narrative. And unfortunately, the layman thinks, it's a vaccine, it must be safe and effective. So yeah, I think there's a lot of manipulation of the general populace. And yeah, I think it's time the population wakes up to realize that they're being coerced into something they didn't need to do. You know, just coming back to natural immunity, I think the one thing that we tend not to realize, your immunity is the most important thing in your survival. Now, when you're a child, you're exposed to an environment and your aim is to thrive in this environment and, of course, reproduce, right? So you constantly, before you reach maturity, sampling everything around you. And you build this library of things that you shouldn't react to, the awareness of your environment. Now, once you reach maturity, you stop building the library, but you keep referring to it. So a child that's allowed to experience the diversity of his environment will build a bigger library, and he won't have issues. But a child that's kept
Very
captive,
narrow library.
small library, and every time he experiences something new, he refers to his library and he says, no, I've never seen this before, and he reacts. So this is a very intricate process. And that's the reason up to the age of maturity, children were not affected by COVID, because it caused a severe immune reaction, which an immature immunity is not really capable of. And once you reach maturity, there you go. You start reacting to everything around you. Now, to go stick a spoon in that and stir it around is the wrong thing to do, because it's a very precise process. And you leave it to nature to do that, because nature is what's evolving around you. Environment's what's evolving around you. Unless you got someone unnaturally manipulating your environment for their benefit, then we sit with the problem.
Yeah. And Dr. Sat, with whatever's going with the media, misinformation, disinformation, I think we three gentlemen have experienced this far enough. I mean, we've been through the judicial process, we've been through the councils, we've been through the media, we've been through our patients. Now there seem to be a challenge. Even though if something that is authentically genuine coming out in the future, we are going to face a problem even convincing them, like, you know what, this is, I think, really, really genuine. I think you need to take this. They're going to say like, no, I don't think so.
I think, if you look at the past incidences we have had, people sitting in, on the world stage wearing glasses and having a sneering smile and telling people, oh, my vaccines are 100% safe. And then over the 2 or 3 years that you had this pandemic, you have seen, the efficacy or the safety has gone from 100% down to 94%, then to 86%, then to 70%, and then to 40%, and then to 20%, and then no, it doesn't stop transmission.
Are you referring to what Elon Musk posted yesterday?
Well, poor chap, he's finding out firsthand, right? But so here's the thing: we were fed misinformation. All right, initially we were misinformed that so-called the vaccine, and we must stop a word here, right? We stopped using the word vaccine. We must say gene therapy. It just got under the EUA, Emergency Under Authorization Act. It was allowed to be called a vaccine. And I think more for the purpose of allaying the anxiety of people. Oh, you're going to do gene therapy. Oh, no, I'm going to get scared. No, I'm going to stay far away from this. All right? let us just do our traditional method. So they allowed them to use the word vaccination or inoculation. We should use the word inoculation with gene therapy and not vaccine. So this information there. And then we found out that the vaccine not only didn't stop transmission, it didn't stop us from going into the hospital. All right. And then didn't stop us from getting sick, going to the hospital, and then being sent to the ICU. And then didn't stop us from dying while we were in the ICU. Eventually we found out it didn't do anything. In fact, actually we found out that in many places, even in Lancet, the journal of medicine, Lancet says your natural immunity is better than 1 or 2 shots.
And this has been
vaccine.
proven in multiple countries and multiple journals at this point.
So just stop it there, and we take one step back and have a look. That means my natural immunity was always better than your vaccination or your gene therapy. So why in the name of good God would you carry on doing vaccination? And now you're going to tell me, we are planning vaccinations for the next virus that's going to come along. Okay, so let's keep the virus aside. You're going to use the same technology?
Yeah, that's the big question. Are we going to use the same technology with the advice by these regulators? Because at this point, what we're coming to the next thing is, are these regulators now competent enough with the advancement of technology? Because at this moment, I think at the start point, the regulators just depended on documents given by the manufacturers.
In fact, we have to remember that the regulators are there to collect data and then give forewarning to the nations that, okay, your area is going to be inundated with viruses or pathogens, and you need to prepare. But it was never the job of the regulators to run down medical guidelines to us. He's a doctor, I'm a doctor, you're a doctor. We have been judged by our peers to be competent enough to practice medicine. No one should be coming and telling us, I'll change the guidelines for you. We know how to treat viruses. We have been treating viruses. I'm sure you have been treating viruses from the first day you started as a doctor. With Shankara, maybe you move into a different branch of medicine, and then maybe virus is not your per se
Go to.
But we all know that there are basics for antiviral treatment, there are basics for flu, there are basics for virus. You don't need to succumb to fear. And here comes the disinformation or the misinformation, right? You're going to get slapped with a virus and it's going to kill 50 million people. How do you decide that? Who's doing your maths?
Exactly.
You see as well, when you look at the technology, right? We were dealing with a novel pathogen. We had to rush a vaccine to market. Why would you choose a tool you've never used before? We've got traditional ways of making vaccines. Now, another thing, there's no such thing as an mRNA vaccine. I think that's a misnomer. Consider.
Wow.
There's no such thing.
Wow.
It's cowpat. Frankly, there's 2 ways of making a vaccine. You can either take a live or a dead pathogen and introduce that into the body, stimulate an immune response. It's the live or dead pathogen that stimulates the immune response. The other way to make a vaccine is to take a protein, a piece of the pathogen, stick that in with an adjuvant, and it'll stimulate the immune response. Now, messenger RNA doesn't stimulate an immune response. It makes a protein in your body that stimulates the immune response. So it's a protein-based vaccine. It's not a messenger RNA vaccine. Now, my point was, if you look at the technology, you're putting in a sequence, messenger RNA, which gets into your body, gets your body to make spike protein. Your body recognizes the spike protein as a foreign substance and then develops antibodies to the spike protein. Now, in that process, you got all these variables, starting with minus 70 degree Pfizer fridge, and the transport of this and the administration. So there's all these variables. Then when you stick it in someone, you don't know where it's going to spread. So it might spread to a range of different tissues. You don't know how long it's going to last for. You don't know how much spike protein it's going to make. You don't know how long it's going to make spike protein. So you're sitting with all these variables there. But what triggered the immune response was spike protein, not the messenger RNA. So you could have got exactly the same outcome if you injected someone with spike protein. The spike protein will trigger an immune response. And because it's spike protein, an inert protein that cannot replicate, you know the dosage. You don't have to store it in a minus 90 degree fridge. You know exactly how long that immune response will last and when you need to give a booster. So why did you have to turn the body into a spike protein factory to have a protein-based vaccine when you could have administered a protein-based vaccine made in a factory outside. So that shows that there's another agenda here. Why the need for messenger RNA technology in the first place? Messenger RNA was unnecessary to create the same immune response.
I'd just like to add, when Shankara said that they brought the Pfizer vaccine, into the country, and they say it must be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius. But do you remember how the doctors were giving it in the clinics?
So you know what I remembered? How they escorted it out.
Yeah, when they brought it from the
You know how they
airport.
escorted it? They escorted it with a full motorcade.
Yeah, and we,
That
I think we
was,
had an army.
we had
I
a
think
live
you mustn't
show.
forget,
Live show.
They weren't bringing a vaccine.
No.
They were bringing your new savior. So he needed the protection.
So what I understand is, as it's got down to the clinics, all right, doctors were just taking out the ampule and just administering to you. Ask them, where do you store this? Oh, I store it in my fridge. Which fridge? Oh, well, for some, they said we had to get this special fridge that from people who are selling the fridge under
Really?
under the health ministry guidelines. So when I spoke to one of the fridge suppliers, he says, all you have to do is our fridge only goes down to minus 20 degrees Celsius. I said, does it go down further? He said, no. I said, great. All my fridges that I store in my practice goes to minus 20. So can I potentially use my fridge? And they said, yes. So I said, where is this story then about the minus 70? Don't I
No,
lose?
it went to minus 100 something.
Yeah. I think even further.
Yeah.
So don't you lose the efficacy? No. We were just told to supply you a fridge with minus 20 degrees Celsius. So half the doctors I spoke to, they just put it in their fridge with your other vaccines.
And then a couple of weeks later, then they said, oh, you can actually thaw it down to between the standard 2 to 8 degrees and vaccinate everybody.
Yeah.
They said-
After the show.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then you could take a Pfizer vaccine and a second J&J vaccine, and you could mix and match. And
He's exactly right about that, but I have a bone to pick with that. Because if I administer to you a drug and you develop an allergic reaction, or even worse, it becomes fatal, you give me one that's from Sinovac, and then you give me one from Moderna or Johnson & Johnson or Sinovac or Sinopharm. Which one is going to be responsible? So if you do that, that's bad science, that's bad medicine. You're not making the person who created...
There's no justice in that.
Yes, there is
No,
no
and-
justice for the patient.
And you're dealing with a clinical trial. Clinical trial has very strict boundaries in place because you're trying with a clinical trial to get good information. So you can't mix and match things and not know what the outcomes are going to be.
I mean, I don't blame doctors in doing this, but where's the justice for the patient when the patient wants to go to court and the lawyer is going to ask the doctor, what did you administer? Oh, off my head, first one Sinovac, next one was AstraZeneca, next one was Pfizer, and then I put cancer, The defendant lawyer, who is for the doctor, he's just going to have a field day, he's just going to walk off. There you are. We don't know which one caused the problem.
True.
Right?
True.
It's ridiculous. You don't make anyone responsible for this. I'm sorry.
Because the only person who will be placed responsible, whether it's in the past pandemic or in the future, is yourself.
Yeah.
Patient.
Because you signed the consent form. That was always the biggest concern which I advocated. Like, look, it's going to be your own consent. End of the day, they're going to take this piece of paper out and wiggle it to you and say, like, look, you signed.
You see,
And
the
we
thing
already
is,
mentioned already. It won't even give you full protection.
And you see, you've got to assume as well that you remember there are a lot of people in the world that are illiterate, and we're trying to assist them. So there's an assumption when you take informed consent that it's your duty to take into consideration the level of education of the patient and inform them appropriately. Whether you have to stand on your head and use sign language, that's what you're going to have to do because they must be completely informed. Now consider that even the most educated person out there could not have given informed consent because part of informed consent is knowing what you're being given. And nobody knew what they were given.
And you can't give an informed consent because your vaccine came without the brochure,
Insert,
the
yeah.
pamphlet, the leaflet.
don't know what's
No,
You didn't know what's in it.
I
How can you
don't
give
know
an
how
informed consent?
was it in South Africa? How was the process? Just share with us.
Well, very much the same as the rest of the world. This was when we talk about lockstep. It was exactly the same. We were lucky in that, for once I'm thankful for the incompetence of my government. It delayed the vaccine coming to South Africa.
You've checked your passport, you bring back.
But this is it. It took a while for them to look. We had a minister of health initially, who I think was a doctor, but I think he was a bit concerned about what was going on. And so he stalled it, and he looked at the Pfizer contracts, and very promptly they removed him with some bogus claim. And they made the tourism minister the new health minister. And we knew that if she thought if she vaccinates the whole country, she'll open up the tourism industry again. And suddenly we had a vaccine and it was being rushed. So there was an agenda to everything that was there.
But I heard at this current moment, one of the documents in South Africa, the Pfizer documents in the contract was actually released out to public under court order. They got it out, right?
Yes, they got it out.
So
we wanted
technically
to know what the government, what did you sign? We as the people. Look, I think South Africa is a different ballgame in that we fought for our democracy very recently and we don't trust our politicians. And so when they do things, we're willing to stand up and say, well, what have you done? You know? So a lot of it will come out in South Africa to show that there's been some nefarious dealings done here. But we were lucky in that I think we got about a 30 to 35% vaccination rate in our country. So very quickly people opened their eyes. And at this point in time, we got a lot of politicians, social leaders, the religious fraternity that are standing with us against this. So I think with this new disease X, people need to rise. People need to understand. Look, the way I see this, Rowan, in the global sense, right? We got climate change, which is a natural thing, but they blame us for it, right? But it's something that's been occurring for thousands of years. Even before human beings walked this planet, there was carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide was spewed out by volcanoes and all this kind of thing. Did geology stop since human beings walked the planet? No. But they blame us.
Yeah, and let me add, do you know that carbon dioxide is needed for plants to grow?
Definitely.
Yeah. The more carbon dioxide you have, the more growth you're going to stimulate. And I mean, to my simple mind, forgive me, but if your vegetation is growing, then you must be mopping off all the excess CO2 that you don't need.
Yeah.
And where's the heat? Yeah, you show me melting polar caps. Yes, we all see that.
No, the leak in the ozone is now an old story.
Yeah, you couldn't milk the cow through. You couldn't milk the cow through.
There was not enough cows to milk.
So just to add on, I think some new findings coming out from the US, the Senate statements, especially from Dr. Philip Berghaus and Dr. Janice Lindsay. In regards to the presence of DNA trace elements in the mRNA vaccine. Of course, immediately in a couple of days after that statement came out with the documents, there was another team of physicians and scientists retested it in Germany, and they found the same thing. Found the same thing. And they are saying that, look, we're seeing the trace of bacterial DNA fragments, plasmids to be specific, which goes to like, or maybe the first batches were maybe very clean, and then as they sped the whole rollout of production, some of the processes were maybe chiseled down, and there was trace elements of plasmids, and this plasmids is the way how we make hyaluronic acid, how we make mRNA technology, or how we're going to make maybe even future cancer therapies. Yep. This is going to be the method. It's not wrong about the technology. The platform is fantastic. But now, to scheme this down and find these traces in, and when things like this get into our cellular body, now the problem gets bigger. And this is where some of the scientists are now theorizing that this could be the cause for an increase global mortality. Numbers have rise significantly, but we are still hiding these numbers. We're not anticipating them in the forefront. Malaysia is very creative in this. The past few years, I've been monitoring these numbers. Unfortunately, this year they started releasing it in quarters, so we don't get to see the whole chunk. But stay tuned. I will debunk that in another episode. We have that. We have an increase of cancer for almost 1,700% globally at the point. Myocarditis, pericarditis, the list goes on. And can something like this now disrupt the gut microbiome, the whole microbiosis of our whole body?
Look, when you look at what we found in the vaccines, this last information that's come out, it is contaminants of the manufacturing process, right? So we use the plasmids DNA to replicate and make the messenger RNA sequence, and these must be properly removed from that. So the initial trials that were done to get approval were very clean batches. Then when you rolled it out to the public, suddenly all these contaminants were there. But these contaminants on their own, besides the fact that spike protein is a pathogenic protein that shouldn't have been used as a primary base for this vaccine in the first place, fragments of messenger RNA will make fragments of protein. And we don't know what those proteins are. So we know when you get misfolded proteins, they act like prions, you'll end up with Alzheimer's and all these neurologic conditions. Then you got DNA there. DNA in plasmids that can be introduced into your cell and into your nucleus. And so that will change your genome. So there's that we need to be very cautious of. But the one thing that strikes me as very unusual, can't figure out what SV40 is doing in this. And SV40 is a cancer sequence.
Yeah.
So where in the manufacturing process did you have SV40 in this?
So here's the thing. The German government is suing one of the providers for the constituents of the vaccines. And for what purpose? It's for failure to disclose about, there are about, I think, 84, 85, 86 constituents. So there were the plasmids, there were the RNA contaminants, DNA contaminants. Apparently there were 3 viruses, okay, and one is Hydra vulgaris. So if you are like me and you like to watch Marvel...
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra. Okay. And they say that Hydra vulgaris is immortal, right? You chop off one tentacle, it's a round thing with tentacles.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'll grow back again. And you know what Captain America, when he was in the movies, I mean, I find this amazing. Like, you cut off one arm, few more arms will grow. You chop off a few arms, more will come. All right. So the treatment for Hydra vulgaris is ivermectin. And that's why I feel initially when they were doing this, it was being shoved down their throat, no ivermectin, okay? No ivermectin for treatment of any sort, okay? So you need to really sit back and think why these things are they coincidental or it was a planned thing, all right? And they found heavy metals. So yeah, we have been told, we know all our vaccines actually are adjuvants, right? Unless you're a developed nation, they remove the thimerosal and other things. But they were finding as much as 20 different heavy metals in the vaccines. So why heavy metals there? You can use one to increase the immune response, but using 20, you know.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and if you measured those in your patients, you will find mercury levels 8,500% above acceptable limits. What's acceptable limits for mercury? Most people will tell you there should be 0 mercury. Mercury poisons your body system. You're finding arsenic 1,100% higher than normal. What does arsenic do? Creates thrombosis, arteriosclerosis, okay, strokes. Whereas mercury will poison any known enzyme system in your body.
Yes.
All right. And they were finding aluminium, and aluminium will cause fits and encephalopathy. All right. And sure enough, we are seeing a rise in seizures. All right. And of course, doctors are always hesitant to treat. They'll say seizures and not epileptic fits. So we can't give you medication. So what do we do? All right. And same, SV40 also was found. I agree with him. It's a promoter gene for cancer.
Yeah.
It's a short part that it took out.
And this is crazy when you think about it. When you have a possibility of plasmids in a nanoparticle, so it's a phosphodiester lipid, basic biochemistry. It's like even if we are all incompetent, it's like go back to our first semester or second semester
Second year.
of medical school. And now the thing is like, how can we not think that this can even infect our gut microbiome? It can leak into all other cells. And in fact, one thing that I was like just thinking about it, oh my God, when the German scientists were saying like, look, women, now be careful, because when something like this gets into your ovaries, it's not mitosis, it's meiosis. It's going to be huge problems.
And I like the fact that you asked Shankara just now, a short while ago, what happens to the gut microbiome. There's this very smart lady, Dr. Sabine Hazan, gastroenterologist from the US. And she runs a lab of her own, and they take multiple samples from the first time they started giving shots, and they were trying to see whether they could pick up
Any
COVID.
change of microbiome in the gut.
Yeah, they were trying to pick up COVID virus in the stools, and maybe use swab samples rather than getting people shoving up your nose and in your throat. And to her surprise, she found a sudden deterioration in the gut microbiome. Until their gut microbiome, you would call it sterile. There were no microbiome. Right? And that's what's happened, she says, persistently in a lot of her patients. In fact, she just presented this in the annual Muffin Journal meeting that we had, the conference, just almost
week
10 days
ago,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing what the vaccine actually does. Somebody should actually sit back, or I'm thinking people should actually step back and have a look and see, is this vaccine actually needed for us? Because you're going to change, the human physiology and the biochemistry, because your gut microbiome drives your immune system. So why would I want to kill off my immune system in the gut? Or make you dependent on my vaccines? I don't know.
So I see it in a very statistical and also economic point of view where the situation happened. So let's just look at Malaysia. We've got approximately about 80,000 registered medical physicians in the country, and close to 50,000 work in the government service. And that leaves you maybe another 30,000 out there. With maybe another 15 to 20,000 are specialists. They're like orthopedics, cancer, gynecology, you name it, the whole shebang. So when you don't expect them to look into this situation. For them, it's like, look, X amount of patients come in, surgery. They tell me to take, I'll take. Because I just trust them. I just want to work and I'm good at doing whatever I do. Now you live with this 15,000 of general practitioners. Okay. They might take this low-hanging fruit here. Look, they shut this down for the past 1 year. No sales. Stay at home. The more people stay at home, there's no more transmission, no more cough, no more this. And then comes somebody and say, hey, you know what? Roll out the shots. RM 15 ringgit, RM 20 ringgit for you. You don't have to pay anything. Just roll the sleeve. Boom. Go. They started having tens, this and that. And then comes out one prick like me. Hey, something's going on. Look at this. And I would say I receive many kinds of messages, hateful messages, insults and everything. I said, you know what? Do what you need to do. If you feel it's right, so be it. I think I have my reservations on certain kind of platforms, and I'm pretty comfortable with other platforms. That is my prerogative as a physician. But some guys even came and said, what's the difference of mRNA and inactivated vaccine?
Were they really asking you that question?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And even
Or
like
do they
6
really
months
want to
down
know
the
the
road,
answer?
6 months down the road, they were still not sure what was going on.
Look, what you're talking about, which happened to the medical fraternity, happened globally to everyone.
Yeah.
Right? This was about economics, and it was about the greatest transfer of wealth from the middle class to the upper class. Right? So it was about master and slave again. The middle class caused all the problems. We got democracy, independence, all that kind of thing. And for the people at the top, we the trouble causes. So how come I couldn't go to my hairdressing salon? Even if I stood half a kilometer away socially distanced and wore 5 masks, she had to close. But 500 people could walk into the local grocery store because they're on the stock exchange. Right? So they empowered you. So now suddenly we're all buying things off the internet. We're no more going to the local shop on the corner. He has to close. And then they talk about shutdown. That's a loaded term, right? You shut down. You shut down everything. But you didn't shut down the bank. And I still had to repay my loan. And I still had to repay my
Essential
rent,
service.
and all those kind of things, right? So what you actually did was stop the middle class from the ability to earn an income. And you created debt for them. And when you open up, middle class are in debt and you've eliminated them. Now that happened with doctors, with lawyers, with everyone. You just had to shut down. So look, the global financial system is a pyramid scheme. I buy shares in your company and he buys shares in my company. Right?
Exactly.
And at some point, pyramid schemes fall apart. And the people at the top must take the money and run. But this is a global pyramid scheme. There's nowhere to run. So in 2008, it nearly collapsed. So they decided, okay, we know it's going to collapse. Pump money into it. Keep it alive. but we got to plan the collapse. And COVID was the planned collapse. The collapse is to take out the middle class, so you engineer a perfect collapse, where you take out the middle class, you impoverish them, and now you go back to master and slave. I keep my money, and everyone else becomes poor. So we're dealing with a predictable, well-controlled collapse of the financial system. And the middle class is going to bear the brunt of it.
True. And I think Dr. Sat, when we see that at the perspective of physicians ourselves, we run our own practices. Did you face this challenge coming down from the hospitals? They will tell us like, look, you guys were not seeing the patients in the hospitals. We are in the ICU. We have to wear all of this special gears, PPEs to see patients. You guys don't know what you guys are talking. We know what's happening inside here. I personally feel the diagnosis was deferred and hence the load came.
Well, this is a loaded question with a lot of answers. Maybe I'll just take two pathways and leave the rest out. The first one is I'm an anesthetist and I ran ICUs before.
That's why I asked him this question.
And I remember year 2001 and 2002, we were having the Nipah virus outbreak. And at that time, there was no fatality like Nipah virus, I remember the figures that were coming out from Sramban GH, where volunteered to actually go and help to run the ICU, was about 54%, 55% death. And but yeah, we were all dressed up, PPE, and we all take 4-hour shifts. Then you get a half an hour break. You go and take your break, you come back and you work. So I was there for almost about 2 months. Probably about 2 months or 3 months. And then they got other doctors volunteering. And then, of course, I went back to work where I was from. It was done with minimal of fuss. There was a huge outbreak in Lukut, in Sepang, this district. Happened in Negeri. Yeah, maybe it spread some other places, in small amounts. But they just kept the whole place nice and tight, contained. And then we didn't have to worry. We all went back to work. It's not like what we did this time around, 3 years of shutdown, and they didn't even have roadblocks. They just told people, just don't go into this place, don't go into this place. Let's not shake hands, and that's it. But I remember only the hospital staff wore PPE gowns and the rest were fine. So it didn't spread, okay? The spread was well controlled by the guidelines that were taken. And I remember that University of Malaya had 2 or 3 doctors who got onto that, and they're the ones who decoded, the virus. And then, of course, that team became world famous, and people started reaching out to them. Now, if you want to do something, you want to prevent something, it's this kind of people that you should get back, or you train people like this to pick up, as the virus comes in, and break, the spread. I think what happened the last time around was we gave power too much to one single man. And this is where I think our government has to sit back and have a look. If hopefully they've done that, but if they've not, you can't give just one man in the health ministry all the power in the world to shut down everything, because if I remember correctly, I may be a bit wrong, but if I remember correctly, 60% of small, medium-scale industries just folded up, or they went bust, or bankrupt, and about 40% of the big industries also suffered. All right, so you are telling me you wiped out half the industries basically in the country by one man's decision. All right.
Yeah, that was about 20 billion ringgit every day.
So
it's huge.
You have got the National Security Council. You have got economists. You have got people involved in monetary systems and all. You should get all of them together, and then you decide which sections you want to actually shut down, if at all you need to. Okay, you have to remember this: viruses are self-contained. That means you just go. You have a relapse now, but you're just going to remission after a while. Your body overcomes everything that the virus throws at you. So they are all self-limiting. That's the word I was looking for. So why would you want to shut down 3 years? It doesn't make sense. It's bad economics, bad medicine, bad science.
And one thing to just add on, it's like they introduced this fear, like your grandsons couldn't see your grandparents. and stuff like that. There were kind of this pathetic kind of fear. And also, if you look at that perspective, is like they always mention about this whole of government, whole of society kind of thing. But the decision making will never be given to a whole of society. It's always whole of government. And we are like the bystanders outside there, like a bunch of barking pricks, like, you know what? Hey, listen to us, listen to us. We're going to hit the gongs, hit and hit and hit. No, we're not going to listen to your ideas. This is the narrative.
You see, with the narrative as well, I had this conversation in South Africa. We had our coronavirus committee who dictated what we can and can't do. So then there was this professor who was saying use remdesivir and you can't use ivermectin, blah, blah, blah. But the last time I looked, it was my name on my script pad. And if he feels that remdesivir works, then he must write it on his name, on his script pad, and take responsibility for his action. So I studied to get my name on a script pad with my credentials on it. So tomorrow you're going to come and tell me my gardener said this is better and you expect me to write it. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's no better than my gardener. The bottom line is I make the choice when my patient sits in front of me, and that's why my name is on my script pad. So you don't come and tell me what to write on my script pad. And this is what they did. They scared doctors, and then if you didn't follow the narrative, you get fired. So we need to look at who's the regulatory authorities here. This discussion always comes to the fore. The general population has lost faith, trust in the scientific and medical community. And the question is, how do we rebuild the trust? You can't rebuild the trust. We have to redefine who the true scientific and medical community actually is. Because when someone put a gun to you and tried to kill you, how are you going to rebuild the trust in that? The man tried to kill you.
True.
So it's not about rebuilding
Not
trust.
once,
It's about
twice,
realizing
thrice.
who you can and can't trust. And that's where we need to go with this.
You're right.
Exactly. And when you see that perspective of trust, now we have to look now into the bigger picture, because local governance now depend on international watchdogs. Like we have the WHO at the moment being the big watchdog. We know what's coming through with the IHR, the amount of pushback physicians are giving, even though a small amount. But in terms of governance, everybody is saying like, oh, it's okay, we're going to just keep our mouth shut until something happens, like, oh, we signed and we adopted a new amendment and stuff like that. And I fear that because once certain amendments get through, then the drama begins.
Yeah.
Because
they sell you convenience.
Yeah,
You
because
think
they give you
also
the power.
convenient to just take my phone and pay for something.
Yeah. And countries like South Africa, Malaysia, and maybe small ASEAN countries, we depend on certain scientific research from international agencies. I mean, people telling that, okay, let's exceed. I don't think it's necessary to exceed. It's not necessary to exceed WHO and stuff. I mean, these agencies stay relevant still, but we need to get also our advisory and not just submit towards a binding position.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, we can take advice. We can give advice because you see, if you're a member of an organization is this big, I mean, take example, when Nipah came, who would have been the best country in the world to give feedback? It was definitely us.
Yes.
Yeah. If it was like AIDS, who would have been the country at the forefront to get that whole episode experience? South Africa would have been, we'd been one of the nations to really look at, okay, what is the gold standard that we've been practicing and adapt. So if we don't want to, we have to understand that agencies like this give and take information. We cannot be the one like, oh, we just want to receive information. But we also have to play a part, but we're going to give information. All these countries have to have that give and take position in science, in medicine. But today when they try to just push the narrative down, and our representatives, we just take the guidelines. We just follow what they tell.
And then that boils down to, again, stopping transmission versus treating the patient with a viral outbreak, right? So we know the vaccine is only meant to stop transmission. It's not going to treat a disease when you have it. I think, everybody needs to wake up to the fact that treatment is a huge part of medicine. Doctors should be allowed to do their job without hindrance. And the doctors intrinsically, many of them know because they see a common viral infection every day. So this a little bit bigger and badder brother has come along. But doesn't mean that the doctor doesn't know how to deal with it. The first few things that you should be doing, in my mind, is waking people up to the fact you have to live healthier lifestyles. So
Exactly.
please eat fresh cooked food. Stop eating things from tins or packets. Eat small meals, freshly cooked. Improve your nutrition. So a takeaway for all the people who listen to the podcast: if you want to protect yourself against any viral infection, build your immune system. Vitamin D3, vitamin C, zinc. They are good places to start for those of you who may be looking for how many units or how many milligrams. Well, vitamin D3, 3,000 international units is a good place to start. Zinc, you can get many kinds of zinc: zinc gluconate, zinc picolinate, zinc threonate. I prefer picolinate because it's easily absorbed and creates the least. In fact, I haven't seen any gut problems with zinc picolinate, although with other zincs you may get. So zinc picolinate, 150 milligrams, out of which zinc will be only 50 milligrams because it's 1/3 of the zinc picolinate. Go for vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams, or you can use natural vitamin C. You can use sodium ascorbate if you want. Do that, get sunlight. Go and get a lot of sunlight. The sunlight activates your vitamin D3, and your vitamin D3 is actually not a vitamin, it's a hormone.
Yeah, it's a
It's a
hormone.
pro-hormone. All right, and we sell it across the counter just like peanuts. All right, but it's actually a hormone. So you need sun. All right, sun has got UV rays, and it kills pathogens. Okay, so for those of you who get sick, then of course there are protocols that you can reach out to your local doctors. I'm sure most of them will have a whole lot of protocols due to their experience with COVID
And long
virus.
COVID.
And long COVID, yes,
And
they
long
all-
vaccine now.
and a long vaccine. You mean multiple vaccines? Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a fear. People are afraid that if this comes along, they're helpless, hopeless. And that's what government sold to us, right? There's no help, there's no hope, there's no treatment, and they held the vaccine up as your savior. But people need to realize there's a lot of things out there that protect us. When COVID first came, I looked at it and thought, well, I've treated viruses before, so I pitched a tent outside my home just to take advantage of two things: ventilation and sunlight. And I said, the rest, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And within a few days, I realized, no, I'm actually protected being out here.
I was the only
course,
one.
around people
I
all
was
the
the only
time.
one taking my kids out to the playground. Like everything was like, what's this cuckoo doctor doing here?
Yeah, because you want to get exposed.
Exactly.
Right. You see, when a virus spreads in a community, a contagious virus spreads very quickly. The immune response of the entire community develops very quickly, and then the virus got nowhere to go. But if you slow it down, then you get it, and a few days later you're going to get it because we're avoiding spreading it. It's going to come around and bite you again because your immunity went to sleep and thought, it's gone, and then it comes back and gets you. So you shouldn't be trying to limit the spread of a pathogen or virus that really isn't as lethal. You treat the people.
When your survival rate was probably like 99.5%.
In the first place.
In the first place.
Right. And you would have not gotten to where we are if you allowed it to spread. You treated everyone, allowed natural immunity to take over. Now you're driving variants. By preventing infection, you're driving variants. You're allowing this to persist. And the talk of variants is a whole other subject. Because when you look at variants, you look like your dad. And your children look like you. Yet one or two might be wayward. Right? Here you got a virus that liked the respiratory tract in the first wave, and then changed to a variant that liked the gastrointestinal tract, then changed to a variant that liked something else. So is it a variant or is it a new platform? Because I remember them saying that on this day, the new variant's going to come, like we're doing with disease X.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think
And
there's more that's
I
going
think I
on.
just want to ask a bit more. Since Dr. Sad mentioned about certain therapies that was available to actually improve immune system. I mean, we're not talking about disease-based therapies, but we're talking about preventive options also. I mean, a natural preventive option. I mean, what were you doing?
Look, when it comes to natural preventive, Dr. Sat is absolutely right. Good eating, sunlight, exercise. And I think a big part of your immune response is your level of stress.
Ah,
Right.
Yeah.
So by creating fear, you'll get people sick.
Absolutely.
So you're going to get your high cortisol levels up, and your immune response is going to suppress downwards.
Yes,
and another one more thing I think just want to add with these two great gentlemen here is grounding, and also playing around with your environmental microbiome.
That's what keeps you on the sharp edge of your
Exactly.
immunity. It needs a constant stimulation, right? When you get a new virus, you get infected, you get over it. That's an upgrade to your software program. You need to upgrade it every
Yes,
now and then.
you have to
Exactly.
upgrade it every
Correct,
2 years.
correct. Exactly.
By
Exactly.
taking people away from the environment, sanitizing everything, there's no lesson. So the immunity goes to sleep. Easy to pick up the pathogen the next time you go out. So you'll find that as soon as they lifted lockdowns, there was a spike in cases. That wouldn't have happened. It was because you suppressed the immunity, then you challenged the immunity with the newborn.
And they were getting normal flu and cough, which they have not had for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. It could have been viral, and then it could have been bacterial after that, but it was not COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think to even just recall back our younger days as house officers. If you're in the medical department, just imagine how much of pathogens you were exposed, and you might get the hit the first
And you get sick
month or two.
initially,
Yeah.
but then you form
a
immunity
strong
after that,
immune.
and then you don't fall sick at all.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Because
That's how your immunity
just
is meant
can
to
you
work.
imagine how many kinds of pathogens there are? You probably even have some MRSA creeping around in the ward.
Yeah.
In the ward. And
I mean, even with kids. I mean, kids that are allowed to are exposed to their environment are the strongest. Simply because they are allowed to experience the environment.
and
that
as
they live in. You can't
as much
protect
I think there is this fear of this new disease X and everything. I think we should not just only focus about this narrative of just looking into pathogens. There are other things.
Yeah.
There are chemical weapons. There are nuclear possibilities. All of this will in the future will be classified as pandemics. They will put all of this in one bucket.
Man-made
Some days.
pandemic.
Exactly. And I think before we sort of like wrap up this, I think one big thing that we need to look at it in the position of in the future. I think the first thing that we all have to think is our natural immunity comes first. I mean, having a starling natural immunity system is very important. Whether you're going to have an innate or improving an adaptive immune system, we need that as our primary basis. And I think that was one of the biggest things that we didn't see until this present moment.
Yeah.
One official saying, you know what, guys, back up the immune system. Because if the immune system is good,
You're not going to fall sick.
exactly.
And
Or
I
you're
think
going to
as-
come sailing through without a problem.
And I think as well, in the future, we got to be very careful about who we choose to manipulate us.
Yeah. So I think
One take home message before we wrap up.
for the people out there, the public, we must not succumb to fear mongering. Okay, people are going to come, and it's going to be the media. They're going to come again and again, and they're going to say, "Oh, it's an outbreak here. Oh, it's an outbreak here. You're going to die. The risk of dying." Just don't succumb. Remember, sunlight, exercise,
Good food.
nutrition, all the vitamins we mentioned. I would add probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, symbiotics, whatever you want. Because entry in your mouth, if you've got a good set of microbiome to protect you, that would work wonders, right? And it may be time that for y'all to form good friends with your local GP or your local specialist, whoever's there, who has been supportive or was willing to help you during the COVID virus. I mean, they picked up skills, right? So keep them close to you, because I was told as a young boy, always keep your barber and your doctor close to you. The doctor, of course, he'll save your life, and your barber will never tell your secrets to anybody else. Anyway, I and Roland don't have hair, so we don't have barbers.
We got to DIY ourselves. Dr. Shankara?
Yeah, no, I think Dr. Sat is right. We're facing a microbiologic threat, and I think it's the microbiology of the planet that will save us, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, God's got His way of keeping us healthy, and we need to cultivate that, right? And then I think from a fear perspective, none of us know here what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. So tomorrow is none of our business, right? It's here and now, right? And I think people need to understand that they were made immaculately. And we have this innate ability to survive and thrive. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, no matter what they say. If you stand on the ground, God put you on, He'll provide you everything you need at the right time. So don't try and run. There's nowhere to go. I mean, we dealt with an airborne pathogen. If I remember correctly, the air circulates the planet, and there was no way I was going to avoid that in the first place. No mask or lockdown was going to stop the air. So yeah, just be pragmatic. Don't allow fear to take away from your ability to reason well. And look at all sides of things. We know when something's wrong. Innately, we can tell something's wrong. But when you're fearful, someone makes a noise, the whole crowd runs in one direction, we just run in that direction. Because you're fearful. You don't make good choices. So don't allow them to start from now fear-mongering. And I can tell you with this disease X, see, Jaws 2 had to be more scary than Jaws 1. So for good measure, expect some climate pandemic, expect some economic problems for good measure. So it's not just going to be the pandemic. There's going to be more that they'll throw in. But you should look at it and say, do what you wish. I'll survive it. We survived that. We came through. The only people today that are regretful are those that took the vaccine. So don't go down that road again. And if anyone comes to you with a vaccine, you know which direction to run.
You know, they will tell you which organism will survive even if nuclear bombs go off all the world and you kill everybody, right? Cockroaches, right?
Run.
Run. We are cockroaches. Okay, we'll survive.
They can keep trying.
We'll definitely survive. Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for this the show. I hope all the audience out there learned a lot from this content. Terima kasih kepada semua yang telah sudi bersama kami dalam show hari ini. Jangan lupa untuk bersiaran untuk episod yang akan datang. Tolong like, subscribe dan juga share The Lesung Batu Medic Show. Sehingga kita berjumpa di lain episod. Kita lesung kau-kau.
Thank you.